My husband forgot our anniversary until he saw who was sitting at my table instead. That moment revealed a truth he never expected. My husband had always been the type of man who forgot the little things. Birthdays, dinner plans, even the time of our first date. It was all just background noise in his busy head. But anniversaries? I thought at least those mattered. After all, they marked the years we'd fought, laughed, and built a life together. This year, I reminded him 3 times. Subtly at first, then more directly. Each time, he nodded absently, saying, "Of course, babe." The morning of our anniversary, I woke up hopeful. He left early for work without even a kiss goodbye. No card on the counter, no flowers, nothing. At first, I told myself maybe he had something planned for later. But as the hours ticked by, the truth sat heavier on my chest. He'd forgotten again. By evening, I made a decision. I wasn't going to spend the night sulking at home. I dressed carefully, choosing the dress he'd once said was his favorite, though I doubted he'd even remember saying it. I reserved a table at our favorite restaurant, not for us, but for me and someone else. When the waiter led me to the table, my companion was already waiting. He stood as I approached, smiling warmly. I slid into the chair, my heart thudding in a rhythm that was equal parts nerves and defiance. I laughed more in those first minutes than I had in months. Halfway through the meal, the air in the restaurant shifted. I didn't need to turn around to know why. My husband had arrived. I could feel the weight of his stare pressing down on me, burning with confusion, as he saw who was sitting at my table instead. And in that moment, I wasn't the forgotten wife anymore. He froze in the middle of the aisle, his hand still gripping the menu the hostess had given him. For a second, he didn't even breathe. His eyes darted from me to the man sitting across from me, then back to my smile, the smile that wasn't his anymore. I could see the realization dawn on his face, like a slow sunrise. First confusion, then disbelief, and finally something sharp, jealousy. It was almost funny. He had never remembered to bring me flowers, never bothered to plan a single anniversary surprise, yet now he stood there, stunned, because someone else had filled the seat he thought belonged to him. My companion leaned back in his chair, calm as ever, and extended his hand toward my husband with a polite smile. "Good evening," he said smoothly, as if this were the most natural thing in the world. The gesture only made my husband's jaw clench tighter. The restaurant buzzed on around us, waiters carrying plates, couples laughing softly, but at our table, time seemed to hang suspended. My husband's pride wouldn't let him walk away, but his shock wouldn't let him move closer either. I sipped my wine slowly, savoring not just the taste, but the delicious irony of it all. He had forgotten our day, forgotten me, but he would never forget this sight. He finally walked over, every step heavy with restrained anger. His voice came out low, almost strangled. "What is this?" I tilted my head, pretending not to understand. "Dinner. What does it look like?" I could feel my companion's eyes on me, steady, supportive, the way my husband's had never been. He didn't flinch, didn't shrink back from the tension. Instead, he reached for my hand across the table and intertwined his fingers with mine, a deliberate gesture. My husband's face darkened. He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. "On our anniversary? You're seriously doing this?" I let out a small laugh, quiet enough to sting. "Funny. I didn't think you even remembered what day it was." The words hit him harder than I expected. His shoulders stiffened, and for once, he had no quick retort. Around us, a few diners were starting to notice the storm brewing at our table. I kept my voice calm, controlled, but sharp enough to cut. "You forgot me long before tonight. Don't act shocked now that someone else didn't." For the first time in years, I saw him speechless, and it felt like power rushing through my veins. He pulled out the empty chair at our table, without asking, dropping into it like he owned the place. My companion raised an eyebrow, but stayed silent, letting me lead. My husband leaned forward, his voice low, but shaking. "Who is he?" The question made me smirk. After all these years, after countless times I had asked, "Were you texting? Where were you? Why didn't you come home?" Now he wanted answers. "He's someone who knows what this day means," I said evenly, brushing my fingers along the stem of my wine glass. "Someone who remembered." My husband scoffed, but his eyes betrayed him. He was hurt. Not by love, by pride. To him, I was supposed to be waiting forever, faithful even in neglect. Seeing me here laughing, radiant, sharing my anniversary with another man, That was a betrayal he had never imagined. "You're humiliating me," he hissed, glancing at the curious stares from nearby tables. "No," I corrected softly, leaning closer so only he could hear. "You did that yourself. Every time you made me feel invisible." He sat back, silent, his chest rising and falling too fast. And for the first time I realized this wasn't the look of a man in love. It was the look of a man who had lost control. The silence at our table grew heavier than the clinking glasses and soft music around us. My companion finally broke it, speaking with quiet authority. "Maybe you should let her enjoy her evening. She deserves that much." My husband whipped his head toward him, glaring. "Stay out of this. You don't know what you're talking about." But he did. He knew enough to see the exhaustion in my eyes, the years of waiting, the countless times I'd been second place to work, friends, and excuses. He knew enough because I had finally told someone the truth. I folded my napkin and placed it neatly on the table, refusing to let my voice rise to match his anger. "You forgot me long before tonight. I stopped waiting for you to notice." The words landed harder than I expected. He shifted uncomfortably, his pride cracking under the weight of my calm. For once, he didn't have the upper hand. My companion reached again for my hand, steady, grounding. Across from us, my husband's lips trembled with words he couldn't shape. Apologies, accusations, excuses, they all seemed stuck in his throat. And in that small, suspended moment, I realized something powerful. I wasn't afraid anymore. His voice finally broke through the tension, sharp and uneven. "You think this makes you strong? Parading yourself around with someone else." I looked at him steadily, no trace of the timid wife he used to dismiss. "No," I said softly, "what makes me strong is realizing I don't need to beg for scraps of attention anymore." The truth stung him. I saw it in the way his hands tightened on the table's edge, his knuckles white. He wasn't angry because I had betrayed him. He was angry because I had stopped accepting betrayal from him. My companion leaned forward slightly, his tone calm but firm. "Maybe you should go. This evening clearly wasn't meant for you." For a moment, my husband just sat there, staring at me as though I had become someone he didn't recognize. In his eyes, I saw the flicker of something rare, fear. Not of losing me, but of realizing he already had. I turned back to my plate, picking up my fork with deliberate ease, dismissing him the way he had dismissed me for years. He stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor, drawing even more eyes to our table. Without another word, he left. But somehow, I knew this wasn't the last I'd hear from him. The door of the restaurant closed behind him, and suddenly the air felt lighter. I exhaled slowly, realizing just how long I'd been holding my breath. My companion gave me a reassuring smile, one that wasn't full of pity, but respect. He didn't ask questions, didn't press me to explain. He simply let me exist in that moment. I raised my glass, clinking it softly against his. "To remembering," I whispered. "To remembering what matters," he replied. His words warmed me more than the wine ever could. For the first time in years, I felt seen, not as someone's wife, not as someone's afterthought, but as a woman who still had value, still had choices. And yet, beneath the calm, I couldn't ignore the knot forming in my stomach. I knew my husband. Walking away so quickly wasn't surrender, it was strategy. He wasn't the type to let go quietly. As we finished our meal, I noticed my phone buzzing on the table. His name lit up the screen again and again. Missed calls. Messages. I didn't open them. Not yet. Instead, I leaned back, savoring the taste of freedom, even if I knew the storm outside was only beginning to gather. When I finally checked my phone, the screen was flooded with his words. At first, they were demands: "Come home. We need to talk. Now." Then came the guilt. "After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me?" By the end, the tone had shifted to desperation. "Please. Don't do this. I'll fix it. Just come back." I set the phone down, my chest tight. For years, I had dreamed of hearing him admit he'd been wrong, beg me to stay, promise to change. But now, staring at the endless stream of messages, all I felt was exhaustion. Why did it take losing me for him to notice I was even there? My companion reached across the table again, his thumb brushing lightly against the back of my hand. "You don't owe him an answer tonight," he said quietly. "You owe yourself peace first." His words settled over me like a blanket, steady and grounding. He was right. For too long, I'd built my world around a man who only noticed cracks once everything threatened to collapse. As we stood to leave, I glanced one last time at the glowing screen. Dozens of unread messages. Dozens of pleas. And for the first time, I realized I didn't feel the urge to reply. The night air outside the restaurant felt crisp, almost cleansing. I wrapped my shawl around my shoulders as we walked toward the parking lot. My phone buzzed again in my bag, but I let it vibrate unanswered. For once, his urgency wasn't mine to carry. We stopped beside my car, the quiet hum of the city around us. My companion looked at me with a kind of patience I hadn't known in years. "You don't have to decide everything tonight," he said. "But you do need to decide for yourself, not for him." His words landed deeper than I expected. I had spent so much of my marriage making decisions to keep the peace, to avoid arguments, to protect his pride. Somewhere along the way, I had lost sight of what I actually wanted. I leaned against the car door, staring up at the stars hidden behind the glow of city lights. For the first time in years, I let myself imagine a future where I wasn't invisible. A life built on choice instead of compromise. My phone buzzed once more, then finally went silent. A small, almost defiant smile tugged at my lips. Maybe silence was my answer. But deep down, I knew him too well. Silence would only make him louder. I was right. By the time I got home, his car was already parked out front, headlights still on, engine idling. He was waiting. My chest tightened, but this time it wasn't fear, it was resolve. I stepped out of my car slowly, clutching my bag like armor. He jumped out, eyes wild, pacing as though he'd been rehearsing his lines. "We can fix this," he blurted. "I'll buy you flowers, we'll take a trip, anything you want. Just don't do this to us." Us. The word tasted hollow. There had been no us when I ate dinner alone on anniversaries, when I fell asleep beside an empty pillow, when my laughter had stopped meaning anything to him. I met his desperate gaze and shook my head. "You already did this to us. You just never noticed until tonight." His shoulders slumped, and for once there were no excuses left on his tongue. Only silence. I turned, unlocked the door, and stepped inside my home. My home, not ours. The weight that had pressed on my chest for years seemed to lift, replaced by something fierce and unfamiliar, freedom. And as I closed the door behind me, I realized the truth. He had forgotten our anniversary, but I would never forget this night.